The Real Investment Show.
And welcome back to the show. Getting ready to wrap up this Wednesday edition. The show about went by fast today. So, of course, right now we're talking about potentially an economic slowdown in 2023. Layoffs, ticking up here. And the Fed wants this, by the way. The reason the Fed is hiking rates, and they've been clear about this, is they need the unemployment rate to come up to take wage pressure off, because wage pressures are part of the inflation equation in the economy. So they need unemployment to come up. So the big thing, of course, and I heard a financial guy this morning. I was driving in and listening to the radio, and he's like, you need to have 2 months worth of expenses in cash, in case you lose power at your house. You remember the freeze we had here in Texas? Mm-hmm. None of the ATMs worked. And this is the only problem with an all digital economy, is that, if somebody dropped an EMP somewhere, you're kind of toast. You can't transact any business at all, period, right? Because everything's digital. So he recommends 2 months of cash. I don't know if you need to really do that. Always keep some cash laying around. And my kid's like, "What's that, Dad?" And I was like, "This is called money. It's green and you can buy stuff with it." And they're like, "Nobody does that anymore, Dad."
Ours
so
is to pay the
old.
babysitter.
I know, right? But but there are some steps that that you probably need to take. And look, you may not think you're at risk of losing your job, and some people are clearly not at risk of losing their job, right? If you own your own business. But what happens if something happens to your business and it goes out of business, right? That can happen too.
You have a health issue, or you have other, or family members have health issues, and now you have to step away from the business. I mean, these are all bigger issues that you need to think about.
Just think about early, here, January, February of 2020. You're a restaurant, totally business, kicking butt, doing great, right? I'm not going to lose my job. I'm fine. Yeah. And then they shut down the whole economy, and you go out of business, right? And I'm just saying, and what I'm saying is that we need to these are things that we should all consider, because things can happen, right, that we don't plan on. And that's really kind of the important thing, right, Dan?
Correct. So I think some of the bigger problems that we don't address is that we typically address these when the event happens, whereas instead of actually preparing for it ahead of time. And so Rich and I have been talking about, having your emergency funds plus a financial vulnerability cushion for Lance, the last 2.5, 3 years?
Yeah.
It's been a while, and people have initially like, that's a little bit, too conservative for me, or, too aggressive on the savings front. And really, it's just about making sure that you're protecting you and your household. And so, if you are, I think that even prior to losing your job, if you have some time over the holidays, I'd start to assess your budget, understand exactly, where you are, make any adjustments that you may need, and think about what are the first places that you would cut if you did lose your job. I find that many times when we go through this exercise, that many people find that they have a lot of, miscellaneous and other items they forget they're even paying for. So we've talked about this where, make sure that you understand all of those online subscriptions or things that you just get automatically. Are you actually using them? Do you take advantage of it? I mean, you see so many gym memberships, Lance, that are just, they're not used, 9 out of 12 months. And then January 1st, everybody, swamps the gym once again. So just the little things that can help you understand where that is. Evaluate your savings. Make sure you do have that. I think having cash on hand is not a bad idea in the event something does happen. We don't want to rule anything out, but also making sure that you do have those funds set aside, and make sure that you're earning something. Look, cash is not trash like it used to be. Look, it's still not going to keep up with inflation, but there are many places that you can actually go out and get a little bit of yield on. In fact, I had a client send me a note yesterday saying that PNC Bank is now paying 4%. They increased that. We're seeing many of these institutions are actually paying you a little money. However, the big brick and mortar, those guys are still paying basically nothing. So be a little bit more deliberate with your cash. Understand where you're going to put it. If you're going to have some on hand, make it work for you. And so that's another idea or something that you need to do. Now, if you are retiring, or if, let's say, you get let go and you're near retirement, everybody says roll over that 401k. And generally speaking, that's a good idea, right? Because we're going to have much better investment options. You're going to be able to more proactively manage the funds. You're going to have control of these funds versus being in that 401k plan that typically is not going to give you as many options. But if you're under 59 and a half, there could be some benefits for you keeping these funds in that account, especially if you need to make a distribution. So, what I'm really talking about is people typically between 55 and 59 and a half. Some of these 401k plans give you a little bit more leniency than your traditional IRA would. So keep that in mind before you just roll something over automatically because that's what somebody says is the best thing to do. So you need to make sure you understand how you're going to pay your bills in the interim. And then, assess Social Security if you're over 62. Now, granted, we typically suggest and recommend that people don't take it prior to full retirement age. There are some times that, we can make an argument that you need to, right? It's just going to be, hey, you need it for cash flow. It's the only way you're going to live. Maybe you have an illness. Those are things that you want to consider. But in general, if you can delay, wait till your full retirement age. And if you can delay even longer, ideally, we'd prefer you wait till 70 or a little bit longer, just because you're going to collect that 8% between your full retirement age and age 70. And then you need to make sure that you're thinking about this not just for you, but for your spouse as well, especially if you were the high income earner. These are all considerations that need to be made where it is a family decision and discussion. And then have a plan in place. Have you done a financial plan? Have you updated it? What does that look like in preparation? I hear a lot of people, Lance, that come in and they say, listen, we just need help managing money. I don't need a plan yet. Okay, well, why not? Well, because I'm not quite ready because I'm not near retirement, or I just don't think we need it. And the problem with that is that if you wait until everything is done, you're ready to step into retirement, we don't have any wiggle room to make changes that can help better prepare you for retirement. So a good financial planner is going to help you build out that plan way in advance. So it's going to give you that peace of mind. It's going to give you the ability to know you can walk into retirement and you're not going to be scrambling trying to figure out how you're going to make ends meet. And there's lots of ways, so a good financial advisor is going to not just to help you manage funds, but they're going to help you protect them from Uncle Sam in the sense of there's some smart strategies we could be utilizing now while you're working that are going to keep more money in your pocket later down the road. And so we look at conventional wisdom, then we look and say, okay, what if we go a little bit different route that we can help protect those funds and mitigate that potential risk further down the line? And so we see a lot of people leave employee benefits on the table. They don't fully utilize that. We talked a little bit last week about how we had a client who, the way that the company was matching their 401k, they were maxing it out early. They were doing everything right, all the things that we were hoping that people do. But the way that they did it, they actually left employer contributions on the table from a matching perspective. And so being a little bit more diligent about looking at how these things are done, I think can help you out now to help build that nest egg, protect you and your family. And then if, God forbid, something happens, you do lose your job now, we kind of know where we go next. And that's one of the bigger things that I think that people don't address at the right time or properly. And look, I get it. I hear a lot of people say, I don't want to do a financial plan because I don't want anybody telling me how much I can live on. And that's not my job. In fact, I tell people, look, I want you to put down, we're going to break things down. What are your needs? What are your wants? And then give me the pipe dream. Give me the thing that you think you'd never be able to do. What's some goal or something that you want to achieve or check off a bucket list? Then,
G4.
Yeah, okay, never mind. Not for you, Lance. But I want to try to help you get there and say, okay, here's the things that you need to do. And so this is why it's important to start working on these things earlier than later. And I think that we can't always do it, but there's been times that, we find ways and people are like, wow, okay, this is great. And so my job is not to tell you how much you can spend. Now I'm going to be your, financial counselor and say, hey, well, maybe you should cut back here, or maybe we should think about doing this a little bit differently. But, this is your money. You're going to do what you want with it. Our job is to make sure that you're making the right decisions along the way and just have an advocate to make sure that, you're being protected, you're making good decisions.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things that one of the biggest challenges for marriages in general is, there's always one of the, and you never know which one it's going to be. We meet with couples all the time. One of them is the saver, one of them is the spender, right? And one of the big things is, and Danny's right, the problem with financial planning is it has that nasty 4-letter word in it called budget. And that's always the challenge, is trying to get everybody onto the same page, to achieve a financial goal. And that's the hardest part. And the only way it works ultimately, and one of the biggest I don't know if you call it a problem, but I guess we'll call it a challenge, is a lot of times, the husband will be taking care of the finances, or the wife will be taking care of all the finances, and the other spouse isn't involved at all, right? They don't even know where the money is. They don't know, what accounts are doing. That's a host of problems. One, if something happens to that person, the other person's like, I don't know where anything is, right? So it's important to have both partners on the same page in just terms of knowing where all the assets are and what's going on. But the other thing is that financial planning and budgeting and all these things will work, but both partners have to be bought in, to that. And that what that means is that sometimes, the husband's like, well, here's our budget. We're going to spend, $3,000 a month to live on. And the wife's like, yeah, in your dreams, so you're going to have to come off that number that you're committed to, unless you just happen to have a partner that's bought into it with you. And find a level that works for you both, that you can both commit to, because that's the only way it works.
That's right. So on YouTube, The Real Investment Show, a lot of people are commenting in the chat box and saying, hey, I want to step in the grave and spend my last dollar when I have any money. Well, that would be great if we knew when our expiration date was, right? Nobody knows exactly when that is. And so we have to be diligent when we talk about how we're going to spend down money. And there's strategies to do so, but I know I don't want to be in some of these places they're going to put you if you don't have any money.
I know exactly the date of my death. It's the day that I'm going to burn in from a skydive with no parachute.
Nice.
It'll be a fun ride all the way down. Did you see that guy that jumped out of the airplane without a parachute?
No.
He actually did this. He set the world record for it, but he jumped out of an airplane without a parachute and landed in a net. That's out in Las Vegas somewhere.
Man, that's pretty gutsy.
Yeah. Do it without a net. That's what I'm saying. All right, that wraps up the show for the day. Danny, thank you so much. So join us in the morning. We'll get you all the updates about where we're going to from here. Have a great day. Get by the website, realinvestmentadvice.com.